Let me tell you a story. It's about a man, a mountain, and a promise that was forged from absolute heartbreak. It's one of those tales that sounds almost impossible, a real testament to what one person can do when they're up against something that seems, well, insurmountable. Just try to picture this for a second. Every single day, one man walks up to the base of a massive mountain, and his only tools? A hammer and a chisel. That's it. And with every single strike, just a few little pieces of rock chip away. It's an effort that seems completely pointless against something so huge. And that's the big question, right? Why? What on earth could possibly drive a person to take on a task that seems so hopeless, so monumentally difficult? Well, the answer isn't really about what he was building. It's about what he had already lost. As you can probably imagine, the people in his village thought he'd lost his mind. I mean, they laughed at him. They were totally convinced his quest was impossible. But you know what? None of that stopped him. Every day, like clockwork, he'd go back to that mountain and just work, all alone, in silence. See, to really understand what was going on in his head, we have to rewind. We've got to go back to this one single day that completely changed his life and set him on this unbelievable path. Years before, his wife had a terrible accident. She fell from a cliff and was badly hurt. Now, the nearest hospital was on the other side of the mountain, but there was no direct road, so they had to make this desperate, agonizing 40-mile journey all the way around it, and it just took too long. She died before they could get her to a doctor. That loss, that feeling of helplessness, was just burned into his soul. And in his grief, he made a promise to himself, a powerful one. He decided that no other family in his village should ever have to go through that, to lose someone they love just because help was too far away. That became his life's mission. So, with that promise fueling him, he went back to the mountain. For him, this wasn't about chipping away at stone. This was about honoring the vow he made to the woman he loved. And the scale of what he took on, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. 22 years. Just let that sink in for a second. For over 2 decades, day in and day out, through summer heat and winter cold, he dedicated his entire life to this one punishing task. And he did it completely by himself. This wasn't some big community project. There was no government funding. It was just the quiet, solitary work of one man, driven by a conviction that no one else could see. And here's the really wild part. He wasn't using dynamite or excavators or any heavy machinery. His entire arsenal, the only things he used to fight that mountain, were the simplest tools you can imagine. Just a hammer and a chisel. And so he worked. Can you imagine the sheer monotony? The sound of metal hitting stone, just echoing for hours on end, day after day, week after week, year after grueling year. Slowly, piece by piece, he was literally carving a path through the impossible. And then, after 22 years of this relentless work, it happened. The impossible happened. His solitary quest was finally over, and what he had created, well, it would change his village forever. He carved a tunnel, a passage about the length of a football field, cut straight through the heart of the mountain. Think about that. A major feat of engineering powered by nothing but grief and willpower. The impact was just staggering. Remember that 40-mile journey? The one that could mean the difference between life and death? The one that took hours? It was now just a short walk. He had defeated the very distance that had cost him everything. So what he built wasn't just a tunnel. It was a lifeline. It became a direct road to the hospital. It turned a multi-hour trip into just a few minutes. Because of his work, who knows how many lives have been saved. And maybe most importantly, he kept the promise he made to his wife. When you look at it, his work was about so much more than carving a path through a mountain. He didn't just break rocks. He broke down the barrier that stood between his community and survival, and he managed to turn his own personal tragedy into a legacy of hope for everyone else. And this incredible story kind of leaves you with one final thought. His mountain was a literal one, right? Made of rock and stone. And it really makes you wonder, what's the mountain that's standing in your way?